It's a fucking disaster.
I think we found our intro.
All right.
After several technical and practical difficulties, we're back, and I think the first thing I wanted to talk about was you pointed out that last time and probably the time before that, I hadn't been giving out my picks. I've been a complete coward. So I resolved to make them public and get made fun of for it. But I think overall we had a pretty similar list on the last K1 show. I picked Abiral, but I wasn't as confident in that as I was in some of the other things. And Wajima made sure that he's not going to be the fastest animal on Earth for the foreseeable future. Kicked him in the leg about 5,000 times. But the only person I think deserves to be made fun of is the trash man, who, through his malign influence, made me and I think you as well pick Mo's brother.
Yeah. He had a gun to my head off screen when I made that pick.
Yeah, same here. He's got to be stopped. But yeah, in terms of the results, I think there's only really one fight that was on this card that is, in retrospect, worth talking about, worth dedicating some time to. I'm talking, of course, about the main event, Chain Guy versus Maki Dwanson in an exhibition bout.
Yeah, that was I remember we said that was going to be the highlight of the event, and I am very, very happy that that happened for some unexplained reason why we really needed to see
What
that.
a thrill!
It was truly great.
Yeah, no, really though. Taiyo Asahisa won the belt in a very hard-fought bout. Gongnapa broke his ribs. I remember thinking at the time that it was the leg kicks that took the most out of Taiyo. That like with some of his kicking game neutralized, his boxing didn't work as effectively. But I think with the benefit of seeing, I don't know if it was an MRI or a CT, I think it was probably his ribs being busted that changed the course of the fight for him. Anyway, he showed a hell of a lot of grit, managed to adapt tactically mid fight. I thought it was seriously impressive. But I also thought that he won within 3 rounds. But every time I think I have a handle on judging, they find a way to surprise me. How about you?
No, same. I didn't see why it had to go to an extension. I thought that step up knee that clearly rocked Gunapar almost finished him. That was more than enough to decide that the third round went Tayo's way. Once again, we get an extension. I almost feel like at this point, they just always want the championship fights to go to an extension round just for the sake of excitement or something. Because you can't claim bias, right? I mean, Tayo is the hometown favorite. He's the Japanese fighter. So it wouldn't make any sense that K1 would be biased towards wanting Gonapar to win. But there's just something weird going on with the way they judge, or if they're told to let it go to extensions or what. But that was bad enough. But
I don't know. I get the feeling that when they do this stuff in Fukuoka, I don't know if they bring the same officials over. I suspect not. And one of the reasons I suspect not is after the fight, Tayo went on a bit of a rampage with his post fight comments. So several people had to weigh in twice because the scale that they used at the weigh ins was not calibrated very well because it was just like bought from a store. It wasn't like a proper like scale that they'd use in an event in Tokyo. And I think the reason is because you have to fly to Fukuoka. Anyway, Tayo, he basically said, yeah, Koya does not deserve to fight me next because he actually missed weight. The scale was fucked up. So I think maybe they just like grab some random guys that they don't have to fly over to judge stuff.
I mean, that's very possible. There's a lot of stuff K1 does where they seem to just fly by the seat of their pants. Everything from judging all the way down to booking the fights a lot of the times leaves us scratching our heads. So, not super shocked to hear that. What I was shocked is that one judge actually gave Gonapar the fight in the extension, which, even if you were on crack, I don't know how you could think. Gunapar got his ass beat in the fourth round. He had nothing left.
Yeah.
Like, that was crazy to me.
You watch enough of this stuff and you feel like you have an idea of what's coming down the pipe. Like you get it when there's something close. Like if there's a decision that's going to go a certain way. Maybe there's a specific gym involved. But in this case, it was like, I do not get it.
No, I don't get it either. Every time I feel like we'll probably touch on it later, but in Rise, the same problem happens. Like it's not just to K1. Like I remember the first time Kosei Yamada lost, I thought, okay, clearly they really value middle kicks, even if they don't land, even if they just hit the arm, because that was the only thing he landed when they gave it against Kosei. So I was like, okay, I'll keep that in mind. And then when I was watching the Abata fight, he was blasting him with body kicks that were actually landing on the ribs and the liver, and he lost. So I I have no idea what the fuck the judges are looking for, because there's fights where the strikes don't land and they seem to give all the credit to that, and there's times when they land flush and clean and they seem to not give a shit. So I have no idea what the hell they're looking for. There's certainly no consistency on if they prefer punches to kicks or body shots to head shots or anything like that. It seems to just be whatever they feel like that day.
I think what we need is for everyone to be on the same page and to do this professionally the way one championship does, which is to retrospectively change your rules, saying that they're based on some other rules that are written in a different language and haven't been updated for like 7 years. Uh, just so we know.
Yeah, that definitely help. Having 18 billion potential viewers would help as well for K1.
So I actually, one has like an esports thing. I looked at some of their contract language, and just to make sure they can squeeze some extra billions out if we ever make first contact with extraterrestrial life. The contracts for that mention that they maintain rights over the universe. So, you can't escape Earth.
Over the universe.
Yeah, you can't escape Earth and get out of their contracts. It's
Holy fuck, that's hardcore.
Yeah.
Gonna send him to work in the company town in the fucking mines of Mars, huh?
So yeah, the other stuff on K1, their second fight in this new super heavyweight division, pretty funny, but also horrific knockout. And then in junior super heavyweight, KG almost lost to the big four-titted former cop guy, but then he managed not to. It's I don't think there's any like hierarchy in cruiserweight. There's nothing makes sense. You just like roll some dice. That guy wins.
No, I'm so sick of Itaka because that's the second time I picked him, and it's like the second time he's come close to ruining my clean sweep. So I picked him against Animal Koji, and he and Leona were the only two wrong picks I had in the entire K Festa day 1 and 2. So they ruined my clean sweep, and then he did it again in this card. I don't know why I keep picking him, but it's so weird because that fight was so winnable for him. Like he was beating KG's ass, and then just very suddenly it flipped. It really does feel like it's just a coin toss with like any of these guys, Sina, KG, Animal Koji, Itaka. They can all beat each other on any given day. It's just whose wild swing lands first. It's unbelievable.
Or in this case, whose lands second. Also, you see the difference in the level of athleticism between someone who has 4 minutes of cardio and someone who has 2.5.
Yeah, I suppose that makes all the difference.
So there was also the Rise World Series show, which was pretty great. The pay-per-view unexpectedly had subtitled VTRs, which was really nice, even if some of it seemed a bit weird. Taiga got to show off his party trick. Nearly left the ring, couldn't quite do it. The 53 kilo GP bouts were all good, but I think the main event between Kazuki Osaki and Iseishi was absolutely fantastic. I think it showed off the difference between the K1 and the Rise offerings in this division pretty well. You simply could not get a fight of this level with any combination of fighters in the K1 tournament. It was just an amazing display of technique and talent, and it's almost a shame it wasn't the final. But I enjoyed all of them.
Yeah, no, it was great. Shiro picked up a win. Was happy about that. I'm still sticking with him as my pick to win the whole thing. I know that's not a popular opinion, but I'm going to stick with it. I felt good after seeing when he pulled out a win where most people were expecting him to lose that fight. Didn't like the Ibata decision, as I said before. Doesn't make any sense given the other decisions Rise has made when like identical fights played out. Um, that like if you give it to somebody who's landing on the arm, why wouldn't you give it to somebody who's body kicking them and landing on the ribs at will? It doesn't make any sense. Probably a Tepin decision. It was close-ish, but I still felt like after three, Ibata definitely had it. But
So I said to
what are you gonna
myself I
do?
was going to go back and watch that and determine whether or not it was a Tepin decision, and then I did not do that. So I reserved the right in the next round to, if he loses, complain and say that he never deserved to be there in the first place, and if he wins, retroactively say that he won the other fight as well.
Very typical picks from the dog man. This is bullshit. I'm all out here on a raft by myself making the hard picks. Yeah, I would say that this, just for people to know, this episode's a bit of a disaster, and we're kind of doing it last minute. We were planning some other stuff, a big Festivus bitch fest, but my ceiling collapsed, and I had to move out of my house while contractors repaired it for 2 weeks. And Dogman's moving to another country, so this is sort of a last minute thrown together about the results and stuff like that. So I also was planning to rewatch it, and then my house fell on me. So
My situation is slightly less dramatic, but also, as soon as we started doing this, everything on a technical level went wrong.
yeah, it's just been steady, steady nonsense this whole time.
So there was one thing on this card that I absolutely hated. Masahiko Suzuki, who I'm really high on and who I think is one of the most exciting fighters in the sport, versus the retired Thai former boxer. Like, I assume the intent was for him to get an impressive win, but the reality was he was mostly punching with a guy who's a better boxer than he'll probably ever be. So instead, he won a decision in which he was just like running face first into a bunch of punches, and then he came out looking worse than he went in. And then from that, they've given him the tension fight, which I'm happy about, but I get the impression that the rest of the planet is not.
No, I especially after seeing that display. Wasn't that guy that the Joe Jim guy he fought like 40 years old or something?
Yeah, so I get the impression that this was an Abema matchup because he turned up when Tenshin was doing that boxing exhibition stuff where if you beat him you got 10 million yen or whatever. He was one of the guys in that. So he's not a kickboxer. I believe he's done Muay Thai a long, long time ago, but like Suzuki was fighting up a weight class because this guy is, he's not an active fighter. So it was just like everything was stupid and wrong about it. And I guess, when I looked at it at first, I thought, oh, yeah, they've made this because he's going to get an impressive knockout. Uh, and then the reality was anything but.
Well, yeah, and I would be remiss not to mention that Luke, fellow contributor on this podcast, actually felt that Suzuki lost before they red carded Joe Jim at the last millisecond for the first rule break. They typically let just about, you can kick him in the groin, you can poke him in the eye, soccer kick them in the head on the way down as they've been knocked out. They usually let it go, but in the last round, with not much time left on the clock, they red carded Joe pretty fast on a rule break, and he felt that actually turned the tide. So I wasn't scoring it, so I couldn't say, but I just thought it'd be worth mentioning that there's some people who didn't even think Suzuki deserved to win, that he got saved by a card out of a hat at the end. So that was a horrific showcase that couldn't have gone any worse. And for him to get the Tension fight, one of Tension's last fights in kickboxing after that, uh, I'm not excited at all to see it.
Well, I think it's going to be a real fun minute and a half. I don't think Suzuki's going to win, but he showed in this bout that if he has one quality above all others, it is that he is willing to just run straight at a guy and fight.
Yeah, no, I mean he always brings it, but if you yeah, if you're just looking at it from like an action standpoint, I can get it, but I'm not. I'm looking at it as Tension's got maybe 2 fights left in kickboxing before he's gone. We have all those action fights. He's done that. I want to see him fight the best that's left. And obviously, I don't think we're going to get the Takaru fight. I don't think that's happening. But
No.
if this is the best they can do, I'm not happy about it. That this is going to be sort of his swan song. I was hoping for more.
Well, I mean, I know one of the considerations was that they want a guy who is going to be active and rise after Tension retires. So I guess that list, if you've already got this tournament going on with guys like the Osaki brothers, who are you going to get? Taiga? Like, he's not going to be around.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see that one either.
I mean, I'd like to see it just from the perspective that I think he could finally leave the ring.
You think that would be enough for him?
I don't know. I think he'd give it a try again, but yeah, like his fight against Ken Nakamura, pretty fun. I'm surprised he got up. He looked like he was gonna die, but he managed not to. But he still looks like he's carrying so much more muscle than he really should be. And I know that allegedly, and you know the source for this is his brother, he was offered the fight with Tension and Ryzen, but he said that Tension had some complaints about the weight, and they were like, well, he's clearly ducking me. But I have a different opinion on that. But yeah, I guess, you know, Tension and Takeru, they're both going to leave on probably pretty unsatisfying fights for most. But I think that when we look back on this era in kickboxing, I think there's a pretty high chance that even if this fight does happen, that it probably won't be what we look back on and think this was the high point, you know.
No, certainly not. Certainly not.
Anyway, so there was something we did spend considerable time talking about, the debut of Kenta Nanbara.
Mm.
I made special effort to watch this, and I have to say, if you were going to write a parody of a karate crossover kickboxing debut, it would look something like a guy absolutely outclassing somebody in much worse shape than him, with a deep tan and pink hair, but still having a couple of moments where you go, yeah, he's not used to this. I mean, it was only like the first 30 seconds or so. Like the other guy was throwing punches at him, and I was like, oh, he's not maybe reacting as well as he should. And it was kind of looking like a real stereotype. But then after that 30 seconds was over, he was actually outboxing him for the entire fight. I thought he looked really, really good outside of, you know, the first 30 seconds of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely seemed a little awkward under the lights. I think that was more just this is the first time in a ring, first time fighting in front of a sort of crowd situation. A lot of the times in karate tournaments, there's like 4 or 5 mats going on at the same time. You don't really feel like you got people other than maybe your coach watching. You know what I mean? Outside of like the world tournament or something like that, a lot of it's very low key. I think it was the light sort of as soon as they said fight, I saw him just tense up in his shoulders really hard. It's his first time doing this, so but I mean, like you said, it only lasted a few seconds. And he seems to just prefer like a lot of them a castle guard. Just sort of took it on the gloves for a bit and let the guy punch himself out. I think it was a fair debut. The guy he fought had 2 wins already, 2 pro wins and a bunch of amateur fights versus him making his debut. So I think that was more than a fair challenge to start. I would say that I don't even remember his name, but the guy with the purple hair, he clearly got terrible advice, and this is something I see happen a lot. There is this belief, like you said, this stereotype that if you fight someone from karate, you can literally just walk forward and throw hooks and they'll just collapse. They'll have no idea what to do. And I could see it on his face. He had this sort of shit-eating grin as he came forward throwing these hooks like, I got him. And then after 30 seconds passed and he did no damage whatsoever, I saw this sort of like, oh, fuck. look come over his face. Like you said, he didn't look like he was in great shape. I think he took it thinking, well, it's just a karate guy who's never fought kickboxing before. This is going to be easy. This is actually something I've seen happen a lot, especially in like Ichigeki kick and senshi. Like this is bad advice. Like whoever's telling you this is a fucking moron. And like you're gonna get somebody killed one of these days. Because I hear that even online sometimes. People are like, oh well, if you had to fight a karate champ on the street, you just walk up and throw a punch at them. They won't know what to do. I'm like, holy fuck, you're gonna get someone killed in a bar one of these days. Kyokushin is a full martial art that encompasses everything: face punching, elbows, ground fighting, locks, trips, throws. It's all there in the katas and all that stuff. Knockdown, the type of tournament rules, is something separate. Um, It'd kind of be like if Krav Maga had like an MMA tournament. They still train everything else, and it's a part of the system, but they limit it for the rule set for the tournaments. So they won't be as good at it as say a boxer because they're not doing it all the time, right? They don't have as much experience in the ring doing it. But this idea that like they're never taught what to do, and you can just walk forward and throw punches and knock them out. I mean, you saw what happened. The guy got fucking obliterated. It was embarrassing to watch at near the end. I mean, he was doing like spinning heel kicks from like point blank range. He just did whatever he wanted
Oh
to.
man, he was like going real hard for a head kick
Yeah,
knockout.
he was just doing whatever he wanted to him at the end.
Yeah, but he was also consistently working the body. And I think the guy realized there's two ways out of this. One of them is to get hit in the body and fall to the floor of your own volition. And the other way is much more painful.
Yeah, it's very likely he quit. I kind of agree with that take. But Nambara looked okay. He didn't look as good to me as some of the other guys who've made their debut recently from karate. Again, like I said on the last podcast, he's kind of an edge case because he was supposed to be the next big thing and just kind of fell off a cliff. So I don't have a great way to gauge how high his ceiling is because he always starts out great and then just sort of peters off. So it was a decent debut. I'm excited to see what he does next. And he's, of course, training with Bay Noah and all those guys at Ideal Gym.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a real interesting thing for me because, like, I'm not sure what the extent of his kickboxing aims were or are, but, they don't really have a division. And Brian, who fought, I don't know if it was at this weight or close to it, but he was on like a one fight deal. But anyway, Nanbara said on the mic after that he wants to be a heavyweight star for Rise. And he actually said like heavyweight, which, so if you look on the Rise website, they do have heavyweight rankings. And number one is 50-year-old Mighty Mo.
Who hasn't fought for them since like 2017, 18, something like that, when he
Yeah,
fought
something like
Kengo
that.
Shimizu. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's not fought anywhere since then. So I'd say he's got a pretty good shot of being their next heavyweight star. But so this is a question I wanted to ask you. Like, I don't know how many fights they can realistically find for him without international travel, but they seem to have been making this effort getting these karate crossover guys. And obviously, like you said, Beinoa helping a lot of guys out, and they've got this like pipeline. Do you think if they wanted to make more of this division, the guys in karate who fight at heavier weights, do you think there are people who would be open to the offer if they were told, come fight for us, you can still do karate?
Um, that's a good question. So first thing to note is you're right about the pipeline and Ideal Gym. I think it's important to note as well because historically, uh, where all these guys are coming from right now to rise, Higuchi and Beinoa and all these guys are coming from IKO1, the biggest organization, Kyokushin Kaiken, and that's led by Sokai Matsui. And typically in the past, they had the famous Team Ichigeki, where if people wanted to go pro and fight in kickboxing, they could go. It was owned and run by the organization, and their contracts were through the organization, not K1. They were sort of leased to K1, but that shut down in 2015 when the original K1 imploded. But it seems to have switched. It seems that they're now kind of doing it through Ideal Gym, through Yuto Watanabe, who was a Rise fighter himself, which is probably where the connection is. He started up kickboxing karate gym, and they seem to be going through him. Now, it seems to have switched, whereas in the old days it would be like foreign heavyweights, like Andy Hoog, Francisco Filo, who would be interested in Team Ichigeki. There weren't that many Japanese entering it. Now it seems to be the opposite, where it's all like Japanese lightweights. It's like Beinoa, Higuchi, Yamashita, all these guys. To your question, would there be many from the heavyweight division willing to cross over? Foreigners, almost no chance. So like the top guys like Aramenko and stuff like that, there's no chance they would go and fight for $100 on a Rise card. They make way more money. They make hundreds of thousands of dollars teaching and being branch chiefs. There's no way they would be interested in that. The Japanese heavyweights, there aren't many. For Kyokushin Kaiken specifically, the Japanese heavyweights, there's very few of them, and two of them are quite old. Maybe Nishimura would be interested. He's 24. He used to live in the U.S., lives back in Japan again now. I can't think of anybody on the top of my head who'd be a good candidate, but to be fair, I didn't see Kenta Nambara coming back out of nowhere to join, so who knows? But I would bet on it being mostly lightweights.
Are there any lightweights you think could be held hostage in a restaurant and made to fight at 80 plus?
At 80, one of my friends who's in the Kyokushin Kaiken, Yamagami Daiki, seems somewhat interested. I've seen him at like kickboxing gyms on his Instagram just training, but he's made no formal announcements. He'd be around that weight. Uh, Other than that, probably not. I think it's always going to be under 70 because I think the big motivation is they win a weight tournament. They sort of started making a name for themselves. They enter the All Japan or the World Tournament where it's open weight and they get blasted because they weigh like 3 pounds. And then they go, all right, let me try this kickboxing thing. I think that's a lot of what motivates the littler guys to cross over. And that just doesn't exist for the heavyweights. And certainly it's not like the K1 Golden days. There's no money to
No.
motivate them to switch over. It's more of a legacy. Like I know Bay Noah, right, said he kind of idolized like Willie Williams and Michael Thompson. And everybody always says Andy Hoog, and I read it recently. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Higuchi said he, idolized Francisco Filo and wanted to be a champ in both like he was. So it seems they're motivated more by legacy than by money, because certainly there's fuck all money in kickboxing right now, especially in Japan.
Yeah, like I get the impression that even the guys that make decent money, one could be making more elsewhere, but two, like it's a full-time job finding and maintaining sponsors.
Yeah, that's the weird part of it too. And also, like you've talked about it before about having to sell their own tickets and stuff like that. Like it seems like there's a lot more to it than just fighting.
Yeah, it's a real time drain. So, anyway, there was also the Crush card with
Mm.
the cruiserweight one night tournament on it. I actually came away with a higher opinion of Seiya Tanegawa than I expected in this one. Like after he couldn't put away Rui previously in K1, I thought maybe he just wasn't that good, but he beat the absolute shit out of Sugimoto.
That was hard to watch.
Yeah, he showed that even though he's carrying a lot of extra weight, he's not just a fat guy with fat guy power swinging wildly. Like he knew when to step on the gas and when not to. He was like methodically picking the man apart, and like very quickly, like within 1 or 2 minutes, Sugimoto looked like he'd been in a car crash. And for his troubles, he was dragged through like 9 minute rounds full of doctor checks to allow Sugimoto to get back in that car and slam it into the wall a few more times.
Yeah, that was we'll have to reschedule the Festivus episode, but that I'm definitely gonna go nuts on that one. I'll just briefly touch on it right now, but what a fucking joke, man. Why? And what is their team doing? Like the guy is getting absolutely plastered. He's shown no offense, no defense, no chance of him winning. He's completely battered, his eyes closing. There's a massive cut on him. They're checking him out. Just let Tanigawa get some rest and go to the next fight. He's not going to make a comeback. And instead, they push this, knockouts, knockouts, knockouts shit so far that they're willing to just throw the athlete's health, down the drain. And I expect that from K1, right? Like we know that. So when they put him back out there, just for Tanigawa to have to fight another round and get more exhausted, so he's not as fresh for his next opponent, which is totally fucking over Tanigawa. I mean, this guy took so much unnecessary damage, but like I said, K1 I expect that, but what the fuck? Who's his team? Is he with Crest? Like who let him go back out there? Do they not care about their fighters at all? Like what
Yeah,
the
I mean,
fuck
it
was
was a
that, man?
complete failure of the corner. He had no hope of turning that fight. He gained nothing from making it to the bell, and lost the brain cells. But like you mentioned, it was of course a very already lopsided tournament, and even more so. Satari beat Rui very very quickly, but yeah, I don't know who Sugimoto's team is, but like he's been out of the ring for a couple years now. But when he was active, he was one of the better guys in the division. And clearly, whoever is cornering him just does not have his back. And you see, like, I mean, you said like as a joke, is he with Crest or whatever? But was it K Festa for day one or day two? Like Kaneko was fighting that guy with the T Rex arms, and they made a really good stop. It was Crest. They threw in the towel. They could see like he's not turning this. He's got no hope. Like save the man's life, save his brain. But whoever was in Sugimoto's corner just did not give a shit.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell was up with that. But this goes out to anybody who does martial arts. Like protect your own health and don't do that well. The corner has to throw it in or I'll lose face. Like it's not worth it to be, addicted to painkillers at 40 and have your body a complete wreck because you get into those fights all the time. Like just you can call it yourself at that point. You know what I mean? There's no honor on going back out there and having Tanigawa smash your face in for another 3-4 minutes while you don't land a single strike. It's just not worth it.
No. So yeah, in the final, Tanigawa obviously not as fresh as the first fight. Wasn't moving as well, but still like had some flurries where he showed his stuff, but still ended up momentarily face planted in much the same way as the first fight against Satari. Even though he didn't come back with the belt, and I didn't expect him to, I have a much higher opinion of him now. He's clearly got more than just being, a guy who can put away food and throw punches.
Yeah, I mean, I saw in all his fights, I've seen flashes of good stuff, especially with his spinning kicks in his first fight in K1. But the question mark for me is I've seen him fight karate a lot, so I know gas tank's not a problem. He was able to fight 3 full rounds with Sugimoto and then go quite hard with Satari for how long it lasted. My question mark is still his chin. He would have won his first fight quite easily. Uemura, I think is how you say it. Anyway, when he fought him, he beat his ass from pillar to post for 3 rounds, but for 1 second, he got clipped with a hook and dropped momentarily and had to get up, and that led to it being a draw because of 10-8 round. So, and that fight's a perfect example of why the 10-point must system is terrible. That was the one punch he landed, and that made it a draw, even though he got his ass beat for the rest of the fight. But I remember seeing that going, that wasn't a crazy hard punch. That's a little concerning. But then Satari's power is so insane that I can't take anything from that either, that he got knocked out by Satari twice. So
Yeah.
it's still a question mark for me. I want to see him fight someone who's sort of middle road power and see how he handles it, because that's my one question mark on him is like, can his chin take this?
Yeah, I mean the thing with the cruiserweight division is the gap between the top and the bottom really not that wide. So
It's one spinning back fist away from changing.
yeah, you're only ever 360 degrees away from being the champion.
That's true. No can defend.
But yeah, so now I guess we come to the stage where I think there are fewer positive things to say. So we spoke before. This is a not at all very good 62.5 kg tournament. Taiyo Asahisa probably does not have much to worry about from the winner, but it turned out to be an even bigger disaster than originally anticipated. Crotch Guy managed to hospitalize himself cutting weight. The Big Bang champion that they brought in to like flesh out the field also missed weight, meaning he would not advance even if he won. So an entire half of the bracket was decided before anyone stepped foot in the ring. And the one impressive thing anyone did do was Yuzuki Satomi scoring a pretty horrific knockout that, again, probably did not need to happen. He was already winning the round 10-7. And, you know, it's pretty clear at that point the guy is not going to turn this around, is not going to win. You know, he's standing there but completely checked out. He's trying to throw stuff, but you know, at that point, having absorbed two pretty bad knockdowns, not happening. They sent him out there and, of course, gets blasted, gets stretchered out. It was pretty rough to watch.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. That was awful. I didn't even finish watching it, to be honest. Yeah, whatever the fuck, lean back, stick your tongue out, jackass guy. I never want to see him again. Like, it's so stupid. Why is he even there? He clearly
I
doesn't
want to
take
see
it
him again. I want to
seriously.
see specifically the one highlight that he has getting played over and over and over again, which is just with his like 1,000 yard stare on his face.
We're getting his testicles smashed in. Like, that's the
Oh
only
man.
thing I remember him for.
Uh, yeah, but so that was Crush. It was perhaps not the most enthusing card in the world outside of an actually pretty surprisingly decent cruiserweight
I
offering.
said the cruiserweight was gonna be good, and you said no. And then you tried to fucking rewrite history on Twitter and said I said the lightweights was the good tournament. Go back and play the old episode. I definitely said the cruisers. You're trying to slander me there, dog man.
I think where the confusion here comes is I don't trust my memory because I also said previously that there was no footage of Kodai knocking out Kumura. And then Konda showed me that not only is there footage, but that I
That's
have
true.
seen the footage. And then it's been posted by Kick to the Future. So, but I'm pretty sure, and again, you know, me being pretty sure is not evidence of anything, that as I was introducing the 62.5 tournament last time, that you said at that time, and I think we just had our wires crossed because I trust your opinion enough to know that there was nothing in here for a man of culture. So I will apologize.
You'll be hearing from my lawyer.
I think it was a misunderstanding. So now that I'm off the hook, one of my other crimes was to get you to wait until K1 announced their next show and leave you simmering and stewing until you calm down a bit. So they have made announcements, and you know they had Egawa versus Chain Guy in their pocket still. They wanted Takaru on this show. They somewhat mysteriously kept Hirotaka Asahisa off of his hometown show, and folks, the stars aligned. We got it. We got the one we wanted. We got Hirotaka Asahisa versus Momotaro for some reason.
Didn't Momotaro lose his last fight too? Pretty
Yeah,
convincingly.
yeah. So
Yeah.
he
Oh
got
god.
like face planted, but
Yeah.
yeah, bizarre step back after beating Chain Guy.
And the fight we wanted. Murakoshi's on the fucking card, so he's clearly available.
Literally, if I gave you a list of the 60 kg fighters on this card and I told you that you can match them up any way you like, except you cannot make immediate rematches, you could have booked better by closing your eyes and picking at random. Like Asahisa versus Murakoshi, the guy who knocked out Momotaro versus Catfish, Urabe versus Momotaro. Like, there, you fixed it. Like, what the fuck is this? There's just no logical linear progression. It is baffling. And the thing that really gets me, Nakamura is a former journalist who loves pro wrestling, but he can't figure out how to like book things and tell a story with it for shit. Like, his life's work is just looking at the 500 guys they have on the roster and making sure that everyone has this like stupid, baffling nickname that they hate and will never use, and then hastily announcing it like the worst, most confusing fights possible in their best division.
I blame Trashy personally because he manipulates Nakamura behind the scenes to make all his 13-year-old kickboxing favorites fight. So they have to rearrange the whole cards around that shit to make that happen. And that's why we get all these fucked up fights. So I blame Trashy. That man must be stopped.
Yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly, but I mean, the silver lining here is that it is. I mean, one, there is like a 75% chance that this card gets completely cancelled, but if it goes ahead, there is a very high chance that somebody gets coughed on and that these fights get better as a result instead of worse.
Isn't that amazing? That unlike other promotions where you're like, fuck, I hope someone doesn't get injured. With K1, you're like, holy fuck, I hope somebody gets injured.
Oh, man. Yeah, like just a few hours ago, they announced that Mio and Miyu Sugawara will not be fighting because somebody
I
got
may have
coughed
had
on.
something to do with that behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's we call those breathing exercises.
Also, I guess we should comment on the tournament of two people pretending like they don't know
Oh,
anybody
fuck.
else on the tournament, right?
Yeah. So the other big thing on the card, of course, is for some reason an 8-man, more realistically 2-man, 67.5 kg tournament, which has been booked specifically to result in Noiri versus Rukia. But I think everybody would have been much happier if they just booked that as a title fight instead.
Yeah, 100%. I said the same thing about the Crush tournament, right? I feel like they must have some numbers from Abima that tournaments sell really well or their viewership is up because they seem to do a lot of completely unnecessary tournaments. Like they'll have a number one and number two contender. They could easily just do a title fight. They usually decide to do a tournament. Like, was there any reason to have Rui in the cruiserweight? Like, it should have just been Satari versus Tanigawa rematch.
Yeah.
But they seem to like to do this. I think one because it gives them more knockouts, right? And then two, they must have some internal data that shows that tournaments get the Japanese local fans to turn out.
I have an easier and more cynical explanation. And this may not
Shoot.
be true, because it's based on my understanding of the demonic sport of but traditionally I think they, if you have a guy fighting 3 times in one night, obviously you pay the winner more, but other people are not necessarily making like the same purse that they would for 2 or 3 fights, if you spread it across 2 or 3 fights.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I honestly never even considered that. That's probably a good point. Yeah, that makes
Everything is
sense.
done on the cheap.
Yeah, and I mean, some of these fights are. I'll let you go through them, but honestly, I want to say one thing too before we get to talking about the brackets. It's very clear who they want to win in the fact that they put the harder fights in Noiri's bracket, hoping he'll get tired by the time he gets to Anpo. I think that's pretty clearly the rubric here.
Yeah. So to quickly run through this thing, Ayinta Ali, he has 5 fights total. Now, I think he's very talented. I think he's got a good future, but I mean, he's got a winnable fight up first against Ruku in the first round. But after that, if he wins, he's probably fighting Noiti, who has what, like 40, 50 fights at this point.
Well, it depends if you count his Shin karate career, which is also with gloves, so it's almost identical rules to kickboxing, just shorter rounds.
Yeah, and
So it
also,
depends if you count those, then it's you're talking hundreds.
yeah, like it's pretty extensive. And not only is it
Yeah.
extensive, but he's not a guy who's, I mean, the last few years, yeah, maybe he's going to decisions more often, but if you are less good than him on a technical level, which is pretty likely to happen if you have 5 pro fights, he will fuck you up.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ali is great, and I think he's gonna destroy Ruku. Just kind of feels empty to be like, oh, cool, he's gonna win that fight easy when you know it's waiting for him in the next bracket.
Yeah.
And I don't understand Noiri's first fight at all. Like, I don't know if they drew these out of the hat from the fighters they had, but Kona Kato for his first round fight, he's 6-3. He started kickboxing really late. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Why
So
why they would do that?
there is some additional context here which makes things even worse, which is he hasn't been able to train much because he had a broken face against Matsuoka. Didn't require surgery, but obviously can't go in there and spar. Hasn't been able to train so much. Additionally, he's been building a gym, and I don't know when this was like put to these people, but I know that he has not been training as much as you would hope for if you're going to fight, like at worst, the third best guy in the division.
Lars Tokyo, right? That's the name of it.
So Lara is the gym.
Lara, that's it.
So like the gym affiliation is a really important thing in Japan, and officially he's still with the Spirit Gym Team Top Zero's Lara Tokyo. But
Holy fuck.
yeah,
Okay.
so but like
I know the
Leona,
Spirit Gym's been gone for almost 8 years at this point.
yeah, so Leona emptied his savings to help his brother build this gym. And like as a result, like the logo, it's quite nice. Is so the Kato family, like all of their names are the first syllable or the first character is based on like an animal. So one of them is a giraffe or something. Anyway, Leona, lion. Kona is tiger. So the logo is a lion and a tiger and their mom's favorite flower, which, as a
Oh, that's
sentimental
cool.
old man, I find really nice. But also, it's like, there's like yoga and dance and stuff there. It's one, it's,
Almost all the gyms do that to survive, yeah.
yeah, like one, it's not like a full time kickboxing gym. Two, it's new and has required like a lot of building and refitting stuff.
Hmm.
Three, his face has been broken. His face was broken. He's not been training, and now it's like, hey, like jump into this tournament and fight Noidi in the first round. It's
Do they have something in their contracts where they can't refuse fights at all? Like someone's in his camp's got to tell him, man, like this is a bad fight to take this early in your career to begin with, let alone coming off an injury and opening a gym. Like you need a no man in your gym. You know what I mean? Not just yes men, because
yeah,
this is a terrible idea.
yeah.
It's not going to be worth the money either.
I think you're probably pretty close to the truth. I mean, if you look at Matsuyama, the other guy in the camp, it's what his third pro fight, and they're giving him a guy who's, I think he has either 15 or 20 fights.
But there's always ways around that, right? You know what I mean? Like, okay, the contract says you can't refuse fights. Sorry, I twisted my ankle. There's always ways around that.
Yeah, so I mean I really don't get it, but yeah, like I like Kona. He's a nice guy. He's a pretty good fighter, but he's not as good as his brother at all. And
No.
the circumstances leading up to this bout, he's saying like, oh yeah, people think there's a 99% chance that I lose, but this is fighting, so there's still a 1% chance that I win. It's like those are
See,
not the
that
words of a
tells me he's
confident
got too
man.
many yes men in his camp. That's what that tells me.
Mm, mm. So yeah, moving on. Rukia is mysteriously booked against a guy with multiple head kick knockout losses that nobody's ever heard of before.
I didn't know that part of it. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I
Yeah,
wonder what they're hoping happens there.
yeah. I'm like just in the last hour or so, they're like trying to promote the different guys in the tournament, and he like quote tweeted the picture of this guy, and it's just like he looks like an old man.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious who they want to win. Like I would say the stiffest competition outside of, the two we expect to be in the final is Ali. I think he's better than Kona, as much as I like Kona more. And obviously, they put the better ones on Noiri's side. And then, like you said, now they got a guy who's known to lose to head kicks for Anpo's first. Like it's such a joke. Like they're so obvious on who they want to win and how they're setting it up. It's kind of insulting, honestly.
Yeah. So I don't think we need to break that down in any particular detail. And then finally, they have Riki Matsuoka, who
Hmm.
just won the crush belt from Kona, versus he's back, folks,
Bowl cut round kick.
Maki Duen Sunpong.
Can't get rid of this fucking guy. You just can't get rid of him. Unfucking believable.
Yeah, I think he's benefited so much from coronavirus. Like if this had never happened, he would never be in K1. And if you look at the fights that he's put on, like there's zero chance this guy would be like continually booked outside of this situation.
It's unreal. I mean, good for him,
Yeah, exactly. Like
If he's living his dream, if he wants to do this, I don't think it's worth it for the amount of brain damage for how little they get paid. But if this is what he wants to do, man, hell yeah, take care of that, take advantage of that. But holy fuck, do I not enjoy watching him fight?
no, like as a viewer, it is pretty. Jill is one of the most passionate fans of this sport you will ever find. And even Jill is like, maybe it's time I just give up.
Yeah, that surprised me because usually she's telling us to, simmer down a bit, which is fair. We probably get a bit too animated about this stuff. But when I saw her say that, I was like, holy fuck, it is really that bad.
Yeah, it's whew. There are some bright spots though. I think Taito Gunji versus Takehito Nimi is going to be awesome.
Yeah, that looks great. Yeah, I mean, we're bitching a lot because we're sort of trying to make up for the Festivus episode that got canceled. But I want to say, I thought the fights we just left, right, that we reviewed with Rise and K1 with Tyo Gunfar, I thought those were phenomenal cards. I don't want to be super negative. Like those were great. I thoroughly enjoyed those. I'm just really not looking forward to the September stuff because there were fights that made so much sense, like you said, and we didn't get them. It's just very frustrating. It was so close to being good, and the matchmaking, which we'll get to the Rise stuff we just saw today. It's just what the fuck are they doing?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Fucking vegetable man. All
Oh
right,
yeah,
Rise.
but yeah, we just a few more things to get through and we can talk. But yeah, so yeah, I enjoyed it. But yeah, they're spinning their wheels a lot and just booking the same like few guys like Maki Dwanson and it's just not. There's no sense of progression. There's no goal that anyone's moving towards. But yeah, like as punishment for putting on maybe the worst kickboxing match of the last 10 years, Tatsuki Shinatsuka's back and he's getting Toma'd. Uh, I don't know if I'm looking
Cool.
forward to that, but if Toma looks like he can do, I will enjoy it as like a divine retribution. Oh, and yeah, like K1 are trying to squeeze some more motivation to fight out of Takaru by having his friend Koki get Ivan Drago'd by Akihiro Kaneko.
Yeah, that's another one where again it's just look, I cut them a lot of slack on some of the undercard fights. Like I know Luke and some other people have been really down on it. I cut them some slack because like you said it's COVID and they can't get foreigners in, so Shogunai, like there's not much they can do. But when it comes to the bad matchmaking, like we talked about earlier, you have guys on the same fucking card that make more sense for matchups. I can't forgive that. Like Kaneko versus Koki is just another stupid give me fight. You've already got 3 or 4 give me fights in the tournament. Like I totally understand if they got, little to work with on the undercards and stuff because of COVID, but there's no excuse for Hirotaka fighting Momotaro and some of these other picks. You have guys in the division that make more sense.
Yeah, and I'm sure like once it actually happens and there's probably like a cool highlight that comes out of it, I will be less down on it. But as a fan who like wants to look forward to this stuff, it gets harder and harder. And yeah, so they have Kenta Hayashi on the card as part of a science experiment to make me excited about a Daiso Sasaki fight.
No, see, but that one's actually a good one,
It
right? Like
is.
that's a
It's
more
like
even matchup.
yeah,
Why can't we have more of that? It sucks when 80% of the card you can go like, well, I can tell you right now who's going to win and how. And it's not no like Nostradamus inside baseball stuff where that's what I said this on Twitter. I'm like, I think on picks I'm like 42-10 or something like that for kickboxing picks this year. And I said I can't even be proud of it because 90% of them are give me's, right? So it just I don't know it. I understand they need some of that stuff to get their knockout quota and keep people tuning in, but I feel like they're really going overboard with it lately.
yeah. It's I mean
Daiso is a good fight though. Don't
yeah,
get me wrong.
I
That's
I really
one where I
respect the
don't know who's
guy.
gonna win.
I think he has a great record. I called him the Yuta Kubo of Crush once upon a time. But he's
It's a good way to put it.
yeah, like he's a guy who you can depend on to be winning like even tough fights. He's really good. He's just not like a highlight reel guy.
He's extremely boring to watch. Yeah, I agree. But at least this one is one where you can argue either way who you think might win this. Which the rest of the fights it's just well, of course Noiri's going to kill him. You know what I mean? So at least this is a more even match, something to look forward to, something where you don't immediately know what's going to happen going into it.
Yeah, I think this and Gunji versus Nimi are the highlights of this card.
Yes,
But
I
some of
agree.
the lowlights, we have Yasuhiro Kido versus a man 5 years older than him.
Great.
Like, I don't know how they managed that, but the other guy, it's going to be his retirement bout. So, I mean, I don't want to shit on that too much, but like
Oh,
when,
is it? I didn't actually didn't know that part
yeah,
of it.
like when
Okay,
they
well,
announced it, the guy came out with a shaved head. And like, I was watching a pretty low res stream because the VPN was bad. And I was like, oh my God, I thought they brought back Kozo Takeda. I was like, no, please God. But fortunately, not quite that bad. But the other severe low light is Satoshi Ishii in kickboxing.
well, I mean, we knew this was coming, right? I think both you and Luke pointed out that they kept zooming in on him in the crowd for the last couple of shows. So I guess I can't act that surprised. Not that I'm excited about it at all.
Yeah, we knew it was coming, but God, I can't even remember now. Is he fighting Aitaka?
Shit, putting me on the spot. Um, I think so.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
either
that sounds
him
about
or
right.
someone who is like functionally interchangeable.
Yeah,
Uh,
but see, this is the thing. Remember, we talked about this earlier. Itaka's on my shit list because I picked him twice and he fucked me over when he should have won easily. So I don't know if I should pick him again, even against Ishii. Swear to fuck, if he loses again, I'm gonna be so bad.
do you
But I
have a
mean,
coin
Ishii's
handy? No, I'm serious. Like right now, I'm gonna go find one. 1 second. Actually, I'm lying. Like all my shit is packed up, so I can't find my wallet right now. But please toss a coin for me and tell me the outcome. Heads is Ishii. Tails is if it's not Aitaka, it's the other guy.
no, I mean, it's gonna look real stupid if it turns out we actually got who he's fighting wrong. Because as soon as I saw Ishii, I rolled my eyes and didn't even look at the rest of the template card they put up on Twitter. So that's my bad. Like again, we said this is a last minute, really rushed show, but no, I'm gonna pick Aitaka again because Ishii's a grappler who from what I know of his can't say that word career, he just sort of holds people down and wins that way,
Yeah,
which he
my
can't do here.
understanding is that he is horrifically boring in the sport that is much more similar to his skill set. So,
Yeah, and that he just holds people down like he's so, and he can't do any of that here. So I'm going to pick Aitaka because he has insane power, but I swear to fuck, he lets me down again. I'm picking against him even if he's up against, I don't care who he's fighting next. I'm never picking him again if he fucks this one up. This is crazy now.
so I'm going to go the other way because,
You're gonna pick Ishii? Wow.
yeah, so sight unseen, uh, even though he's a boring grappler guy now in kickboxing, I have a good reason for this. So Aitaka just lost his last bout because he cannot go for 3 minutes. Uh,
True.
Ishii, even if I discount his entire uh, career, he was at least an Olympian, and an Olympian has probably seen a treadmill.
He's also being trained by Crow Cop, I guess, which is not a horrific training partner for this.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's Crow Cop who had a stroke, I would
And you still
pick.
teach him a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I would pick Crow Cop post stroke against the majority of.
Either of these two guys. Yeah, me too. I'd pick him to beat everybody actually, except maybe Satari.
Mm, mm. So the other thing was Kyotaro versus Sina.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I unironically, man, I can't even keep my composure. I'm laughing so hard. I love this fight because Cena is gonna say the craziest shit to him at all the press conferences and shit. He's just gonna roast the living fuck out of him and his hair and all the stuff he does. Oh, it's gonna be fantastic.
So I had the sound off until I saw him, and then I turned it on, and he was offering to fight him under boxing rules, and then even said that I won't throw any spinning back fists.
I love it how he knows that's his one move too. He's becoming self-aware. I fucking love it.
He
It's so
rules,
good.
man. But whew, yeah.
He also said, didn't he say he wanted to fuck him or
Yeah,
something like that?
his words specifically were, "Let's go to fuck this clown."
Let's go to fuck this clown. I'm looking forward to just endless. You know how he followed around Cage and photoshopped him? He's gonna do that, but like to like cocaine levels of insanity when he shit talks Kyotaro. Because there's Keiji just looks kind of like a normal guy in street clothes. You know what I mean? He has so much more to work with this guy. It's gonna be fantastic seeing the shit show that all the press conferences are gonna be, where he constantly tells him how he's gonna fuck him and he doesn't even need a spitting back fist to beat this bum. Oh, it's gonna be fucking great.
God bless this man. So, Rise also set out their stall for September, and I think, we touched earlier. I quite like Tenshin versus Masahiko Suzuki. The rest of the world does not. I assumed that they would try and keep Kazuki Osaki and Shiro on opposite sides of the bracket, but they're fighting each other right off the bat. Teppen guy Kazane fights Jin Mando Koto. And in the last few hours, it's been announced. I'm trying to build anticipation here. Koki Osaki and Kodai in the reserve fight, but also that Beinoa is fighting some guy I've never heard of and that I assumed from the thumbnail was a YouTuber, but I guess he isn't.
No, he's not. He's vegetable guy. Got him on the screen eating a leek or something like that. I don't even know. Um, yeah, he is a pro fighter, and apparently his record is 7 wins and 3 losses, according to the little bit of research I did. I've never heard of anybody he's fought though, so I I have no idea what to expect. But once again, I would like to remind everybody, like I did last time Beinoa fought somebody, that Beinoa is the champ. What what are they doing?
It's just masterclass booking. Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but I saw the thumbnail and I assumed it was an exhibition or like I thought maybe it was one of his comedy things, and then I look and it's not just an exhibition, like it's a fight.
Yeah. No, it's a real one. And I I suspect Bang Noah's his priorities are very split. And I think Ryzen knows that, and maybe he, talks to them about this kind of stuff. But if you look at his career so far, you look at the fights he's had and the fights he's taken, they don't really match up for the guy who's had the belt for as long as he has. He seems to get like Gunapar versus Daiki Kaneko basically every fight at this point. And I suspect that's a lot to do with the fact that, he's still very active in karate. He's doing his comedy thing. He's trying the demon sport. His priorities are all over the place. And it's almost like they're cutting him a break because of that. Because the opponents he's had for, like I said, holding the belt for quite a while now doesn't sort of make sense. And this one's another one where, I mean, at least it's not a total. I mean, the guy's definitely a meme guy. I don't really like I hate vegetables to begin with. So to have a dude whose whole personality is I like vegetables, I already hate him. But at least he has 7 wins. He's got a winning record at least wherever he got those fights. When I first saw him, I thought, is this like a guy who's never fought before kind of thing? But he's at least got a winning record. I know that's an exceptionally low bar, but that's what we're
So
dealing
I've learned a couple things here. One is that he's actually a kickboxer. Two is, so you're a McNuggets guy, huh?
with. I fucking hate vegetables. They're disgusting. I eat them because I have to for health, but I fucking hate the taste of them.
So I guess they also put Showa Ari on the card. Pretty cool.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that fight a lot.
Uh, there was they're also rematching Taiju and the guy who cut him, Naoki, which
Yeah,
presumably
that's
Taiju's
a
gonna
fair
win.
fight. Yeah, I mean, but with what they got right with COVID and stuff, I that's a fair fight. That's what I'm talking about. At least, I mean, other than Leak Man, whatever the fuck his name is, they are trying to make sense with their matchmaking a little bit more than K1 is, but they don't seem to push the whole knockout, crushing the crush crap that K1 does with the knockout reels and the nicknames. So that's a fight that makes sense, right? To rebook that now that the tournament's over. So that's a fair one. I'm looking forward to that one. Like I agree with you, Shiratori will probably win.
Yeah, and also they have in their back pocket is Kento is going to be on the card too. So there is a division and it will move forward.
What do you think they're going to do with that? Do you think they would have rebooked the Petch fight, or do you think that's just off the table now completely?
I think that's completely gone. I think, like, from what I've heard about the situation in Thailand, like, guys are just giving up.
Really? Okay, right, because of all the stadiums getting shut down, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
fair
it's
enough.
pretty bad.
Well, that sucks, because that was a fight that really made sense and would have, if Kento had won, would have made him a really big star. So, and I think he could have won that fight.
Yeah.
I'm sad
And
that
I
we
mean,
didn't get
like,
it.
they spent so long trying to get Tenshin versus Prajanchai as well. And, like, one have signed him.
Right. Yep. I remember that.
Yeah, so I think September has some pretty competitive highlights. It has some crushing lowlights, but I'm hoping to be back on the internet by that time. We spoke about this. We were planning on this being a big negative,
Festivus.
just pissing on everything. But I have enjoyed myself. I have started sweating from laughing.
I think it's because we do these so early in the morning when we're both just exhausted. It seems to be
Yeah.
the right sauce to make us both just complete fucking goofballs more than we normally are. So I think it worked out great in the end, even though it started off as a shit show. But yeah, I think the main takeaway is I'm more excited for the Rise stuff than K1 just because of the mismatches, but still decent fights. Obviously, I'm super happy Taio won. And I guess a parting thing I would add is August 29th, there's a FICA karate tournament. And for people who don't know, which probably most people, I didn't even know this until recently. Ishii, the old owner of K1, who went to prison for tax evasion and sort of lost control of it, during the golden age. He's the leader of Seito Kaiken Karate. He's actually rebranded their sort of tournament circuit as FICA, FIKA. I forget what it stands for. It's always International Karate
It's
Association of Budo
Federation
of
International. I
Internationals.
believe the K actually stood for K1 at one point
Yeah.
because when he lost the rights to the branding or sold it or licensed it out or whatever, like this was his plan for a comeback. And it was going to be a kickboxing thing, but clearly it is not a kickboxing thing.
No, FICA is all in on karate knockdown and stuff like that. But the only reason I bring it up is because it's very likely Kosei Yamada will fight in that, as he still has extremely tight ties to both Ishii and Seito Kaiken. So, um, yeah, I expect him to win because it's not that big of a tournament. Seito Kaiken's a lot smaller since Ishii lost all that going to prison. But I just thought I'd let everybody know that Kosei will most likely be fighting that and some of the other Seito Kaiken guys that fight for Rise. So I'll
Yeah,
keep an eye out
so
on
if
that.
they stream that, please watch it. Kosei is real cool.
I think likely there will be no way to watch it knowing the way Seito Kaiken usually goes. We get fan cam footage from the bleachers if we're lucky, but we'll get the results at least. Where I suspect Kosei will fight and he'll win pretty easily in his division.
Cool. And one last thing, you floated the idea of a karate podcast.
Mm.
Any movement?
Yeah, no, Ichigeki X Edge, who helps me a lot with research on the Kyokushin Analyst channel, he's down. He really wants to do it. Um, Basically, we're just waiting for a tournament, a big tournament to talk about. There was supposed to be a big All Japan in August, but it seems to have been pushed back. JFKO canceled their international weight tournament. Seems like the world weight tournament that they do every 4 years for the Kyokushin Kaiken is not going to happen this year, despite it falling on the fourth year since the last one. So everything's kind of getting pushed back because of the state of emergency. Unlike sort of the professional orgs and stuff like that, and especially the Kyokushin Kaiken, which is the main one we follow, they really care very deeply about what the public thinks of them because I think they make most of their money from teaching kids stuff like that. So they really try to keep like a super professional, clean appearance, at least outwardly facing. So they are way more skittish about holding tournaments during COVID and stuff like that. Actually, some of their semi-contact tournaments they actually had the fighters wear masks while they fought. So it just goes like they're really heavy about their appearance to the public. They very much try to stay out of politics. If somebody starts saying something crazy, they reel them in or kick them out. That kind of stuff. So we're just waiting for something to get announced that's gonna go through because they keep pushing everything back because of the state of emergency in Japan. So we don't want to just sort of sit and talk about nothing. He really wants to cover a big tournament that can sort of propel it forward. So maybe September.
Sitting and talking about nothing is what this is.
Yeah, we've already got this one. We don't need two of those. So probably September when the All Japan and the end of November gets announced. That's probably when we'll start talking about that.
Cool. Well, looking forward to it. I've specifically and pointedly not engaged with Olympic karate because I need the professionals to break down the wonderful happenings and people scoring vicious knockouts to win medals. It's
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really watch it specifically just out of support solidarity with Jun Atsuki. I felt she really got fucked over and been really pissed off with the way that Olympic fans have been treating her. So I kind of didn't watch much of it just out of solidarity with her. She would have easily won her division. Some of the fights I did watch and some of the kata stuff I watched, I mean, it's what you expect from that organization. I know a lot of it's subjective and most people don't give a shit about kata, but there were like three that I watched where they literally fucked up the kata. They did something wrong and they still won where the other one didn't and things like that. So I mean, it has about as bad a judging as anything. So it wasn't enjoyable to me, and a lot of the athletes that should have been there didn't get to go because of poor judging. And then like you said, you're supposed to, in this sort of point no contact stuff, they're supposed to like pull their punch at the last second, kind of hover it in front of your nose. But the guy threw himself into it, so there was nothing the guy could do. But it landed, and the guy laid out, so he lost the gold medal. Just a shit show from the start. I mean, the people who should have been there weren't, and then the rule set and just the stupid way the Olympics do it. It's just, yeah, wasn't my thing.
Yeah, like I have very limited understanding of karate and the different rule sets and stuff, but I remember pretty vividly when it was announced that this was going to be an event in these Olympics, and then when it was announced like which rule set they were using, like all the Kyokushin guys were. It was like, yeah, this is going to be a disaster because of these things, and then all of those things happened.
Yeah, I mean, I knew this was gonna happen, and I have I have mixed thoughts on it because I won't say her name just because she might not want to be on the record, but I talked to somebody who is willing, who's in the upper echelons of this stuff for Olympic karate. Because my initial impression my whole life is I started off, both in Kyokushin and Shorin Ryu, Shorin Kan. Those are like my styles growing up, and they're both hard styles. Kyokushin's obviously knockdown, and Shorin Ryu is like old style Okinawa, like lots of body conditioning, smashing your knuckles up on makiwara and like self defense training. Like you can attack the groin, eyes, whatever. There's no rules. It's for self defense, like old style. This sort of point style is weird to see. So I've seen some people on Twitter call it traditional. Nothing traditional about this. This is about as new as it gets for this no touch sparring stuff. But I asked somebody who's really high up in this, who I respect. I said, why? Like, why this? Why not Kyokushin? Why not, Nippon Kempo or something that's still point, or Shotokan even, JK, like that's still hard contact but points. And they basically told me that they have no interest in getting their face smashed up or getting concussions or getting seriously hurt. And this allows them to do martial arts and what they love without, because it's an amateur sport, right? They still have to work. And that basically they just wouldn't do martial arts if they couldn't do this. So when I heard that, I kind of softened my opinion on it a bit. But my ultimate worry was what happened is that people don't understand that unlike judo and other arts that are pretty consolidated and might only have one or two splinters, karate makes Middle Eastern politics look simple with how broken apart and splintered it is. Everyone who gets a black belt doesn't want to pay organization dues, so they make their own organization, call it Kabuto Budo Federation International Express, so they can run it themselves the way they want. And it's been doing this for like 100 years, just splintering. So people think that's karate, and that's all it is. And I saw tons of casuals on Twitter saying like, "Wow, karate's shit. It sucks." That was my main concern, and what I knew would happen. It makes all of us look bad. So I'm torn between like, fuck this, get rid of this. It's making all of us look bad versus hearing her story that basically she wouldn't do martial arts if not for this. That sort of, I don't know what to think of it now, but it certainly wasn't good. And the heavyweight final was a fucking disaster.
Well, I think it is in screenwriting, things have symmetry. You start off with a fucking disaster, you end with a fucking disaster. So I think that brings us nicely to the end.
Yep.
So thank you once again. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for gracing me with knowledge and insight that I do not deserve and will not remember.
Hopefully next time when I have my house back and I'm not living on the side of the road, talking on a push to talk mic, and you finished moving, we can do a more proper, well researched episode. Sorry about that, everybody, but we hope you enjoyed the laughs at least.